All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. We have a great topic on tap here. Really timely as it relates to just getting into the new year. These are things that we've talked briefly about, but we're going to delve very deeply into today. And that's what is absolutely critical for buying or selling a home. And it's interestingly what we've got out of over the last few years, just technology and our approach to the real estate market and how we do things has drastically changed. And it's created a situation where it can bite folks. So we're going to chat about the importance of planning, getting your lending ducks in a row, and then things to consider during the home buying, and then things to consider during the home selling process. So we're going to cover a lot of ground here, but the primary thrust is going to definitely be the importance of planning, the things that we need to think about, plan for, and the significantly better results that we can accomplish with planning. We're going to bring in our co-host today, Chase, well, all the time. um, how you doing today, Chase?
I'm good, Jerod. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm trying to get into the flow of this podcast thing after the year. You take a
Yeah, we
couple
took we
of,
took a break, didn't we? We took a break.
yeah, yeah. So I'm hoping to, just get back into the flow. But if it's a little disjointed, I'll apologize up front.
I'm sure it's gonna be good.
Yeah,
Wouldn't worry.
this will be a great topic. This is super important, so hopefully folks take a lot of value out of this. But yeah, let's do a little housekeeping here real quick. For those of you that I haven't met, my name is Jerod Lee. I'm the associate broker and team lead here at My Home Connection, also known as MHC Realty. Our sponsor for today is our perfect home buying process. We've spent the better part of the last couple of decades, developing, fine tuning, perfecting this home buying process. We just want to make it as efficient and as least costly and as educational and as value packed as possible. One of the new items we've got, or updated items, I should say, is our relocation and lifestyle guide for the new year. We're getting our last final revision in, so we're excited to be releasing that this year. It's got just a ton of great, valuable information in it. But we've got no obligation consultations, our weekly podcast to answer a lot of the questions that you have. Currently, we're working with Chase on a promotion for you in regards to him and Summit bringing to the table up to $500 on the appraisal, and we'll contribute up to $500 on the home inspection. So feel free to contact us if that's um, information you want to learn more about. But with that, I'll bring Chase back on. And I guess, it just felt like, at the beginning of the year, we've touched on here and there during different podcasts about the importance of planning. And I don't think we spent a lot of time talking about why it's not the typical MO when people enter the home buying and selling market. So I thought we'd touch on that first and then get into the specifics of the financing piece, the buying and the selling. Just so I'm not rambling too much, I'll contribute my initial thought, and that is internet, right?
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
you know, we used to kind of be, I don't know about the gatekeepers, but the first, interaction that somebody would have in a home buying process, uh, as they would buy a car, they'd typically figure out if they could afford it.
yeah,
Talk to a lender before they look at a car. Today, they look at cars online, find a car, and then hope they can finance it. That's kind of what's happened with home buying. Used to, come to you on the lending side, and then they would come to me and say, "Hey, I've got a loan, I've got a lender, and we've got a letter, pre-qual letter, and now we want to go out with you and start looking at homes." But all that's changed.
yeah. No, absolutely. The process is very different, right? We had that switch from figuring out the finance first, and then going to the realtor, to everybody going to a realtor first, and now they're bypassing everybody and going straight to the internet. And it's the same for the lending side, right? Like it's push button get mortgage society that we live in. So it's push button get everything, right? And I
Yeah.
think with the Amazons and with all of the online shopping and the ease, right, and the quick response and the ease that our society looks for, um, you can really overlook how important this purchase is and how important it is to have professionals involved in it protecting your interests.
Yeah. Yeah. So the problems that come about, once you found a property online and you think you've kind of answered all the questions, you got your mortgage calculators on the website, you've clicked the buttons that you're talking about. And now you found a home in an area that you want. Um, and now the wheels are in motion, right?
Yeah,
You've kind of fallen in love with the house, or certainly are highly interested in the house. And maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. Maybe there are far better options. Maybe this
right.
isn't even an option. Um, or maybe it's an option, but man, you sure could be in a better position to buy it better.
Or are you are even seeing all the properties that are available, right? Is
Right.
it just like with the search engines and all of this stuff, is it steering you down a narrow hallway? Yeah, there's so much to it as far as understanding what your needs really are, letting a professional sit down and consult with you, help you decide what those needs are, and then going and finding those needs. Um, it's yeah, the preparation I think comes into play where you need to understand, you need to know it's time, right? But the consultation with the real estate professional, really, someone that's helped people through this process, they help you weed out what you may or may not need, without, you don't know what you don't know, right? That saying, until you've sat down and talked to somebody that really knows and been through the process, a lot,
Yeah.
the online impersonal, it can really get you going down the wrong road.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've talked about this before, right? We will definitely, um, communicate that this is not the best timing for you. Rates aren't going in the right direction. They're going to come down later. Let's pause. Whatever that looks like, kind of that
Yeah,
forecasting and that better positioning. But all too often, agents are put in a position where they'll get a call and they'll say, "Hey, I want to go look at this house." Open the house, and now they're buying a house, and you know it's hard to unwind buying a house when you've kind of already thought about it, and which sometimes isn't bad, but if you could have waited 3 months, or should have prepared and started 3 months earlier, the whole outcome could have been night and day
right.
different.
Right. Well, and and understanding the process, right? The RE21 here in Idaho has changed. You used to be able to get
Purchase and
out
sale contract. Yep. Uh-huh.
right, purchase sale contract. Yeah, you used to be able to get out pretty much any time on financing contingency. There's been some changes that if you don't know what you're doing or you don't have a professional protecting your interests, you could you know fill out the forms incorrectly, not have that contingency, and so there's a lot of legality in buying real estate. And
Yeah, builders, good luck, right? They don't use the same. So when Chase is talking about an RE21, it's a purchase and sale contract. It's a state form. So most of us agents use that, but builders, a lot of them don't. They'll write their own purchase and sale contract, and if we're all honest, guess who that benefits?
yeah,
You know, so
they're not writing it for you, they're running a business.
yeah, and they'll flat out quite often say earnest money is non-refundable. You got this contract, we ratified it, right? Accepted it, and we're off to the races. And but for you know catastrophic events, your earnest money is theirs.
Yep.
So all to say, you'd really want to make sure that your ducks in a row, because if you either don't have a letter or you have a kind of a you know non-bulletproof prequal letter, and you're not set up for success, and you realize a week into it that this isn't going to work for you, that could get painful quick.
Yeah, yeah, it could, and that's all of. I think for me that's probably the first step in the preparation, right? Like if you look through the process and everything, like understanding it's time for you to buy, or that you have that interest, right? And you want to move forward, whether it's move up, move down, first time home buyer, whatever that is. understanding that, that's something you guys want to, approach. But then the next step is, okay, getting in contact with a professional that can help guide you through that process. Like that's that, you need that guidance. You need that, consultative, relationship to help get you out of, keep you out of trouble. And it's quite honestly, if you're a couple that's purchasing, sometimes you need that buffer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
A disinterested party, non-emotional, that's
Right.
just going to make the best decision for you and your family.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree with all that. I'd hate to think that an agent, once you've asked them to open the door and you fell in love with this, you know, would say, "Hey, timing isn't good."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's just going to be agents out there that are going to let you buy, right? You're an adult and you say you want to go buy, but they don't have, you haven't spent the time that you need to understand what your short, mid, long term objectives are, what the nuances of what you're trying to do are, you know, uh, potentially not even having had a good conversation with the lender to make sure that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. Hey, they gave me a letter. Okay, let's put in an offer. Well, hey, let me call that lender and make sure that this wasn't a 5-10 minute conversation and they kicked
Yeah.
out a pre-qual. And so I'm going to share, hey, we're looking at a new construction home. This is going to jeopardize earnest money right out of the gate. We can put the offer in. How solid is this pre-qual? Well, maybe we should, dot some I's, cross some T's to make sure. Okay, well, let's pause. Don't want to lose the house, but let's do it the right way, type thing. Anyway, not trying to scare everybody in all
No.
this, but there are definitely things, as Chase mentioned earlier, that put your earnest money in jeopardy or get you in situations that aren't easily reversible, right? Even if it's not just earnest money, sometimes it's a I'm drawing a blank on the term right now, but it's a failure, a performance,
Yeah.
specific performance. I don't know why
Hmm.
I drew a blank there for a sec, but they can sue for that.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's just my earnest money, and I say that lightly. I have had a buyer say, hey, if I need to walk away from my $5,000 or whatever it was. By the way, guys, it's roughly, there's always exceptions, but 1% of the purchase price of the home, right? So I'm going to $500,000 home, $5,000. Well, they need to understand sometimes it's not just that 5,000. You
Right.
know,
Right.
what if that seller, builder, homeowner says, "Hey, this cost me money," and they want it back.
They want it back. Well, that's why a lot of builders have increased what they call earnest money, right? Like it's because with them, it's not, it's considerably more, right? If they're building a home or whatever, it can be, I've seen 10%, fairly frequently in our market, because of the expenses that the builders have incurred.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
That's a good point, Chase. When I'm coming up on my 20th year here, and I've written earnest money back in the day for $250.
right.
So and they weren't really taken seriously. So they've gone up. Contracts have tightened, expectations have increased. So you just really have to take this stuff seriously and make sure you're prepared, and not just because you hit one of the online sites and they kicked you a letter.
Yeah.
To Chase's point, what'd you say? Click button, get mortgage. Is that what you said?
Yep.
So you get that letter, and then you and I go out, Mr. or Mrs. Home Buyer, and
Hmm.
we put the offer in, and then we call the lender, and they're like, oh yeah, you know what, we missed a couple things.
Yep.
Online, they don't care. Well, I
Yeah.
shouldn't say that. There could be a situation where they don't care, like we missed something. Well, that doesn't
Right.
help you, you know. Or I'll add
It,
one more thing, and then we'll move on to the other topics here. But or it was a perfectly good letter, but they couldn't get it done in time.
yeah.
They committed to the typical 30-day escrow. That happens a lot with online. Is we try to push them to get it done in our commitment time. We're committed to close in that window, and contractually. So anyway, we just really want to make sure you're prepared.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, again, to recap real quick, that's getting in contact with, deciding that you want to pursue it, getting in contact with a professional. If obviously I prefer it's me first to make sure that we're financial, and just to touch on that really quick, the reason that your agent is wanting you to be pre-approved before you go shop is that they are small business owners and they incur expenses, and they don't, having them incur expenses um, when you have no possibility of buying, or when they have you, we have you looking at completely the wrong product because you don't qualify for that, but you qualify for this, right? So understanding that, so getting in touch with a professional first. If you're with the right realtor, they're going to say go get pre-approved first. So either way is great as long as you're with the right team.
Yeah, it saves
Um,
everybody time and headache and possibly money.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the financing side because you're absolutely right. Folks will come to me and say, "Hey, let's go look at some homes," and I'm like, if I'm really blunt, I would say, "Okay, what homes, what areas, what price point, with what loan type, all the things that we're talking about here." Instead, they go look because these are the things that could drastically change what their options are, right?
Yeah.
I'll interject the first one and correct me if I'm wrong on any of these, but hey, I think my credit score is this. I'm perfectly fine to buy a home, but they're looking at Credit Karma,
Yeah.
not the same credit score, right?
It's not. It's not. It's not. So realistically, there's, you know, we've got abbreviations, but it's CCIs, credit, cash, and income. Credit always comes first. Um, there are thresholds that you can't go, that you won't be able to purchase if you're below. There are thresholds that make it less expensive for you to purchase if you're above those thresholds, right? And the higher you get, the better. So credit obviously is the number one thing. Um, to your point, the mortgage pool is very much different than what Credit Karma. And I use Credit Karma. It's great for tracking trends and what your
Trends.
credit is
Yep.
doing. Yeah, whether it's moving up or down, but it's going to be different, 20 to 40 points below or 20 to 40 points above. I've seen it both ways.
Car
Um,
dealerships pull a different number, right?
right, absolutely. So car dealerships and a consumer credit stuff like that. It's usually they will pull one bureau. Okay. So with mortgage, it's your entire credit history. It's any liens or judgments that might be out there, whether you know about them or not, because oftentimes, in Idaho, we have an interesting type of lien called an indigent lien, which I've run into a number of times, where client has no idea it's even there, right? So, or things that you've forgotten about. And then they take all three bureaus, Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax, and they throw out the high and low, and they use your mid score, and that's the score that's used through the mortgage process, and helping to determine what your interest rates are going to be, and how you qualify for the mortgage.
Yeah. So even if a friend, or prior loan officer said, "Hey, your credit scores need to be this to get into this type of loan or whatever," that might have changed. And even if it didn't change, and you're looking at Credit Karma thinking this is my score, and it's not there, that changes things significantly. What was the other thing I was thinking about? I think it was, if you're on the bubble for the next tier where you get better pricing, but you can't address this issue for another 60 days, but your interest rate's going to be significantly less, either give you more buying power to buy a different house. You know what I mean? There's, you want to know that sooner than later.
Yeah, that's really the pre-approval process is so important, and obviously, I think I've, I feel like we're spitting into a hurricane at this point, because there's so much information online, right? The
Yeah.
chances of them not looking at a house before they come see us are slim to none. So it's always that, okay, take a breath, take a step back. Let's do this process right once we're in touch with them. But that's the most important. There's a lot of times where folks will come see me, and they don't qualify because of credit, but a lot of times it's 30 days, 3 to 6, or 6 months, right, in order to fix it, to get
Mm-hmm.
them there,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's not don't be afraid to go look, because I get that a lot too. It's like, oh, I can't buy, my credit's terrible. Well, you don't, you don't really know what it takes to get it to where you need to buy. And the threshold to hold the purchase, I promise you, is not as high as what you think it needs to be.
Yeah, we've had that discussion before, and it's way
Right.
different than most people's perception, just because times have changed.
That's right. That's right. It's realistic, and there's all kinds of assistance out there, and all kinds of there's like I do a lot of credit repair myself in house. I have partners when it needs to when it's more severe and it's going to take more time. I've got partners that we work with to help get that up. So, but getting those things in place, right? Like that's the before you go look at anything. This helps you determine what you can look at.
Yeah, we won't get into the details today, but there's some things you can do, like almost instant, major jump in your credit score. So if you think I can't buy, or like to Chase's point, you don't think you have enough down, or whatever, we've had podcasts talking about how we can get help with all of that. But if you're like, hey, my credit score is here, I'm not even near there, a 10-minute conversation with Chase, he'd go, yeah, I think in very short order, you could get a 20, 30, 40 point jump. You have modeling software
Yep.
to kind of run some analysis on it.
That's exactly right. Yeah, it's a pretty simple process. Just it's not as scary as you think it is. So it's always good to look. But that's one of the biggest fears, especially with first time home buyers, is they just don't think they're ready. And it's not that they're not ready, it's that they don't understand the process, and education around that is pretty slim.
Yeah, and you're even doing this off a soft pull, right? So it's not even a dinging on their credit. So it's just a matter of a few minutes to check out where you're at and assess the situation. Okay, that makes sense. Let's move things forward a little bit. And speaking of, let's talk about borrower type. We've got another podcast on business owners, right? The time to structure a loan for a business owner can be way different than a traditional buyer, that's all W-2'd and got everything spelled out. So you want to get ahead of it even further than a traditional buyer, because we can almost guarantee you're going to do things a lot different than what you have been to make sure you can get that house.
Yeah, I have a soft spot for our small business owners because that's the family that I grew up in. My mom and dad were small business owners, and I have a soft spot for them. And the mortgage industry does not. So they do everything in their power. So basically, what it comes down to, and this is my own philosophy because I've watched it over the past however many years. The laws for small business owners and mortgage, it really feels like the IRS has stepped in and said, if you're not going to file this in order to pay taxes on it, if you're going to have expenses and write things off, then you can't use that income to qualify for a mortgage either. So it's almost like a strong arm for our small business owners to say, hey, you're going to pay more in taxes, or you're not going to buy a home.
Right.
And so there can be a process there depending on how your taxes are filed in qualifying. And so with business owners, it's 2 years tax returns. If you've been in business for more than 5 years, sometimes we can use 1 year returns. But if you put that into perspective, if your taxes aren't filed right, you've been in business for 2 or 3 years, taxes don't show enough income in the spots that I need them to be in order to count them for mortgage income, then is it another 2 years of tax return filings in order to be able to purchase? Or is it some other form of creative financing that's more expensive that you have to save money for? Yeah. Right? Like there's a whole process to that, and just about everything can be done if you get out in front of it and plan for it.
Yeah, and plan for it in advance. Like, if you're ever thinking about buying, call us today, because even if it's 5 years down the road, you'll be much better positioned and have more planning involved and with a better outcome. It's, and to Chase's point, we need those tax returns. Yes, you can get some amended and all that, but that's not without cost and headache to unwind some of that stuff.
No, and they've made the recent rules they've made that more difficult. You have to have a really viable reason. We used to amend them all the time, in order to help people qualify to purchase. They've rewritten those rules. Like you have to have a really good reason to amend unassociated with the purchase of a home in order for that to get approved now.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I'm telling you, like it's a fight. It's a fight for our self-employed folks.
Yeah.
Um, but that's one I'm definitely proud to take on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So let's get it in conversation with Chase ASAP if you're a business owner for sure. And let's talk about loan type, right? I always kind of find it interesting. Like, hey, I'm gonna go look at this house. I'm a first-time home buyer, and I love the house. Like, well, let me pull it up for you, and it doesn't even qualify for an FHA loan.
Hmm.
And you're going to need an FHA loan. So, so people need to know that just not every home on the internet is something you can buy.
Right.
If you don't have an option but to be an FHA buyer, you know, show me the homes that you're interested in, and I'll show you homes that'll align with that. And then, by the way, let's filter out the ones that won't qualify, right? You can speak, I'll let you speak to why a home wouldn't qualify for like an FHA or a VA loan.
Yeah. To Jared's point again, just to not to beat a dead horse, but like I would be willing to bet that the majority of the sites that you can go online to view homes don't have the full information, right? They don't have, like, do they have cash only? Can you see that online? Probably not. Can you see doesn't qualify for an FHA loan? Probably not. Jared's system and where he searches for homes has all of the homes in the area, plus it has all the information, right, to help us guide to what to look for. Because as Jared brought up, like with condition really matters if you're an FHA home. There are more stringent guides, condition of the roof, crack and peeling paint, condition, trip hazards in the floor covering, leaks. The inspection is much more rigorous on any kind of government loan, whether it's FHA, VA, or USDA versus conventional. So, but there's even a point to where conventional won't close a loan, right? And that's when
Yeah.
you'll see cash only. And so you don't want to be going down that road of looking for the wrong thing. And down payment differs between those two loans. So how much assets have you have saved up? Are we using down payment assistance? But then the assets will qualify for reserves that help bolster a lower credit score to help you qualify. Like, you can really get in the weeds with all of this stuff. But it just all goes back to being prepared, like starting now. So it's a new year. What are your goals? Start now, preparing by talking to us if one of your goals is to buy a home.
Yeah, yeah, and we're going to save you a lot of brain damage. Chase mentioned that the sites might even have the ability to filter those. So let's hope you know what loan type you have. Let's hope you're on a site that helps you filter those out. But I'll just be honest, there's some agents that don't know how to correctly identify whether they qualify for it or not. So they'll just select them all, and they'll send it to me, and they'll go, "Hey, this one site said that this one qualified for an FHA loan," and I'll click through 3 or 4 different photos. No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah. It's pretty easy to spot most of the time, isn't
yeah,
it?
well, yeah, I mean, yeah, sometimes.
To train eye.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, so in some agents defense, like they're like, maybe it will, so they put it up there because they want to get visibility to it. But I want to properly advise my clients that, hey, I see what they're doing here and they're kind of walking a fine line. Do you want to get in the middle of that? Like,
Right.
it might be, you might go to buy this thing and your appraiser goes out and puts a condition on it, and the seller may or may not want to do anything about it, and you're not going to put money into it because you don't own it.
Right. And do you have, yeah, then that's just to get it closed, but then do you have the money afterwards to get it fixed? Items that need to be fixed. Like there just is so much, right? It's really a it's a professional process and should be addressed that way because it's the largest purchase that 99% of Americans are going to make. And so you need to take it seriously, and the preparation has to be there to put you in the right position.
Yeah.
And it's not just our first time home buyers. It's not just FHA loans. Maybe it's our first time investors. Are there loans out there for them? Absolutely, there are, right? But with bank statement loans for our self-employed folks that don't show taxes, DSCR loans for investors, that there's not enough, income for, right? So how do you qualify for those? What the credit score has to be, what the down payment has to be. Like there's options for almost anything. It's just a matter of preparing and knowing before you go make offers that you can get that done.
Yeah. Yeah, and you touched on options a little bit, and you can certainly expand on that here in a minute if you want. But I think we might have covered that.
Uh-huh.
But trends, right? Somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, I'm ready to buy a house. My lease is up, and I want to bounce into this." Well, they should know. Obviously, everybody's crystal ball is broke, but if you're sitting down, they're with you, Chase, and you're looking at their short, mid, and long term objectives, and you're like, "Hey, we anticipate that rates are going here or there. Uh, let's factor this into the decision to move forward or not." Um,
Right.
and by the way, look at a micro level, not at a macro level, right? We get a lot of people saying, "Hey, the market's doing this. Look at these six, major markets, trending down in value." It's like, okay, but that's not Treasure Valley. That's not Boise, Idaho.
Hmm.
You need to look at what's going on in our market.
Right.
We anticipate going forward this year. Uh, Supply is down. Demand has just been hovering, ready to go, and now the elections are out of the way, and we expect this to be, kind of a banner year. So if you're looking at what other markets are doing across the country, thinking I got time, prices are going to go down, I'm going to wait it out, you might get bit, mid
Yeah.
later year because the Treasure Valley is behaving differently.
Yeah, and that's the trends are really important, right? Like, but I feel that you don't want to get too much caught up in that, right? So your decision to purchase a home is a financial decision. Usually, always starts
Mm.
with as a financial decision, right? We're ready to buy. I think we can afford it. Our rent's as much as a mortgage. Like whatever that looks like, it's typically starts as a financial decision. And you and I have had these conversations, but once you go look at a home, boy, that emotional side of your brain kicks in, right?
Oh
And now
yeah,
and emotion always overrules that. And so having those goals set up front with your agent and knowing where to go is the most important thing.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Now we do want to take into account the trends, but so take 2008 for example, right? It was turmoil. We both were in the industry in that point,
Hmm.
and it was craziness. Um, a lot of people that bought lost their homes, and that had to do more with the extremely creative financing that was going on, and not actually qualifying for a mortgage, which that doesn't exist anymore. You have to qualify,
Yeah,
right? You have to have skin in the game and you have to qualify. So, but even take into account those folks that bought, market crashed, which is like one of two or three times since the 1940s that that's ever happened,
hmm.
right? So it's not something that typically happens in a recession,
Right.
right? So keep that in mind. But years later, those people that kept their homes,
They
the
love
value
it.
went down. Are they upset?
Oh no, they're
They're
doing
not.
great.
Yeah, they had a huge boom when the market turned, right? And so no, understanding what you can buy and is it the right time for you,
Yeah,
that's the best decision to make,
yeah,
right? So and then if you because you can never time the market perfectly. It's 100% luck to do that
yeah,
because it can turn. You look back to '08, it can turn in a day.
yep,
It's literally like somebody shut a light switch off back then,
yeah,
right? Like it was like what just happened.
yeah.
So
This the scenario. Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, I was just going to reiterate, getting caught up too much in the trends will help you miss more opportunities than you can imagine.
Yeah, no, I put it on here to be aware, but yeah, don't let it stop you. I think your example there is a great example. If you bought high in 2007 and now you're in 2009, and you think, "Hey, I'm underwater. I'm just going to cut this thing loose," but you come to us and would have said, "Hey, one, it's you're underwater and it's really difficult to hold on to the house." And instead of you cutting it loose and now you've got a repo, um, we said, "Hey, it's we expect it to rebound. If you get a roommate, power through. We've seen this before, and it's going to appreciate. As
Yep.
you go on, it's just a matter of holding tight. Now, so you kept that house because you had to have a roof over your head anyway. You powered through it a little bit with a roommate, and now you've got a highly appreciating asset. And a lot of people parlayed that equity, into upsizing their homes and
A
bigger
great
properties.
amount of
Or
wealth was created when that turned around, for
yep,
sure.
yep,
And it's so yeah, it's you want to watch the trends, and you want to do the best that you can for you and your family, get the most for your dollar, right? That's kind of what I look at trends for, is getting the most for your dollar.
yeah,
But whether to buy or not, that's not what tells you to make that decision.
right,
Unless you're investors and things like that, right? Then those trends matter more. But if you're buying a primary residence, financially, is it right for you and your family at that point in time?
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
like you look at right now, and you historically, there is a dip in pricing right this time of year, going into winter, going in, with the economic climate, with the political climate that we have. So, nationally, we're looking at a little bit of negative pricing, right? But then you think of it as a wave, because that's what the economy is. So a little bit of negative pricing, what happens after that? You get a rebound, and rates go up, or not rates go up, but home prices go up. So even though rates are a little bit higher right now, home pricing you know, is fairly reasonable compared to what we've seen over the past 3 or 4 years,
hmm,
right? Like we've seen some settling, which we needed and expected. Um, so is it good to buy now, with a higher rate, and pay a higher rate for 12 to 24 months, or is it good to wait for 2 years and pay $60,000 to $100,000 more for the same house?
right, right, yeah, yeah. You can potentially adjust the rate, but you can't adjust the purchase price.
No, I mean and I know that we've said this on here before, but you want to pay, you want to be fifty to $100,000 more in debt, or do you want to have $50,000 to $100,000 more in wealth that you've built because
Right.
you bought now?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, hey, let's talk about buying a home. So there's definitely things to consider when you go to purchase that might pull things in or push things out, such as we do have some often a seasonal aspect of our home buying process here. So if you said, hey, I want to get a really good deal, the best price I can get, is probably middle of winter, unless we just
Yeah,
have a very strong year and we just kind of power right through it. But seasonally, homes stay on the market a little longer. Sellers are going to be, more inclined to give you a concession or drop the price, change some terms up. But if you said, hey, I'm going to wait, 3 months now, so that would put you, in the right smack dab in the middle of our, one of our strong buying seasons. Like all of a sudden that flexibility and those options go away because sellers don't have to do any of those things.
right.
It's like, oh, okay, well, I'm glad I didn't wait, right? Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
little less convenient to move in the middle of winter, but I got a better price, or I got some help with my um, closing costs, or something like that, which I'm not going to get, in May, June, what have you.
but yeah,
Um,
there's still a lot of concessions out there from the builders, for sure, and sellers. So yeah, a lot of positive aspects right now.
Yeah, but we can pretty much, foreshadow the fact that each month that goes by for a builder, so if they have a seller concession, so those that you don't know, that's a seller contributing, some type of credit to you at closing to buy down your interest rate, to, you know, get upgrades on the home, whatever it might be. Typically, we'll see the uh, the promotions that are these seller concessions as each month goes in deeper into the year, collapse the amount of concession they'll give you, so less money, or
Yep.
completely go away,
Yeah.
right? Because their inventory isn't moving midwinter. They're willing to do some of that. The number's bigger. And then as their sales ratchet up, who knows what's going to happen month to month, whether they reduce it or take it away.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting. I think nationally they're saying, and not to get too much, to get off topic and preparation and the things to do, but I think, little short market excerpt here. The nationally they're saying end of first quarter, was when we'll see the turnaround. But again, having a professional in your area is really important because there's a lot of areas that do run contrary, and Idaho historically has always run contrary. We're either the last one to get in, to get into bad conditions, typically minimized bad conditions other than '08 because we were so heavily, construction, our economy, depended so much on the construction at that point in time. But I'd be surprised. It could, but I'd be surprised if Idaho is, the end of the first quarter.
Right.
End of January and February, because I'm already seeing a pickup in business.
Yeah.
So, just understanding the different markets, understanding your market, and working with professionals that understand your market. Super important.
Yeah. Yeah, so we can help you identify time of year. We can maybe give you options for a different type of product. What I mean by that is the type of home that you want. I think most people think of a single family dwelling, right? You got a home structure on some land around all four corners, and people are looking at that and they're like, okay, the prices don't quite fit, my budget. They have got a budget from you. And they just keep looking at single families like, well, okay, what if you looked at a townhome? You don't have all four, sides with dirt on it. You're adjacent to somebody, but on the other hand, it's a lot less, or noticeably less money. Or hey, even that doesn't work. Maybe I need to do a condo for now, which is just the four interior walls. Could I get into that and begin to participate in this home ownership scenario that begets equity in my house? So anyway, this
or if you're the investor mindset and you're like, man, maybe I could buy a duplex and live in it buy a duplex as a primary with an FHA loan, and have income right off the bat, living in it for a couple of years and do it all over again.
Yeah.
Right. Like the scenarios are, that's where understanding your client and it comes into play, and knowing how you can best help them.
Yeah, and if they had talked to both you and I, we could talk about structuring their loan so that they could look at that type of product.
Yep.
Otherwise you get, a month or two down the road and realize, wow, I should have been looking at that. And now we got to go back to you and then say, hey, Chase, can you restructure this? Or see if this is an option. Anyway, market demand. We just talked about that a little bit. When is the demand coming on? When is it potentially backing off a little bit? When is it, so that it's helpful to you and not a hindrance to you? What are the reasons you would go look at a new construction home versus a resale home? Some people might perceive, hey, why wouldn't I ever get a new construction home? Well, there's reasons why you shouldn't. And we can share all that. I think we've got a podcast about that already. But you would want to know, instead of getting into it, open up the door on a new construction home, say, I love it, buy it, go, oh, here's all these downsides that I wasn't. What's that?
There's no trees.
Right. Oh, look, they're going to be building this out for the next year with all this dust flying around. Oh, what do you mean I got to go spend thousands of dollars on blinds? But anyway. Yeah.
You lived through that yourself, didn't you, Jerod?
Oh, yeah. I'm not new construction guy. I just like new construction homes, and I do the trade-off, right? I'm like, okay, I'm going to be dealing with construction. I got to go buy my own refrigerator and washer and dryer. Anyway,
you got to know those. You got to know those things, right? Like you need to be educated on that as a home buyer.
Yeah.
So
up front, hopefully, yeah, absolutely. And then let's talk to the sellers out there. One of the most painful things, the worst things you can do is say, hey, I've been thinking about selling my house and now I'm ready, right? Because they've looked around and they think they've got an idea of pricing and, what the market's doing and all that. And then realize, oh, wow, I'm not even close, or, hey, I was close, but I missed a big issue. We have, extensive conversations around, are you ready? Is your home ready? By the way, even as a seller, we would want you to talk to Chase, because the last thing you want to do is put your home on the market and not be able to go anywhere, but you think you can, right?
Yeah. Well, a great percentage of our business is always tied to the sale of another property, right? Whether they've already done it or are in the middle of it or are planning on doing it when they buy, right? That's that it's super important that the whole process all ties together. Is it's going to affect how you purchase, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. A condition. So, myself will go through, staging consultant goes through, and we just, make sure that we spell out all the things that we would recommend that you do to prepare it to look its best on the market, to make sure, hey, I'm not only getting conventional buyers, I'm getting FHA buyers, because your buyer pool is larger. You're like, hey, I
Hmm.
don't want to paint that thing. That's just annoying to me, right? Or I don't want to spend the money, whatever the reason you don't want to do it is. But if I say, hey, your buyer pool is going to expand tremendously by putting a little bit of time and effort and money
Right.
into that, oh, okay, but oh, wow, that's going to take me, a couple of weeks. Well, okay, that, might push deeper into the best buying season. We actually have a window here where the demand usually picks up a little bit before the inventory comes on. So you've got
Hmm.
people looking without a whole bunch of competition just yet. But
Yeah.
now, if you're going to push it out a couple of weeks, anyway,
And it's understanding which of those things, right? Like which of those things are actually going to help you get the sales price you want or get the return that you want,
yeah.
and not do
Oh,
everything, because you can overspend that way too and waste money that you're
yeah.
not going to get back in the sale.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've seen people that threatened to or even did spend the money, and they're like, whoa, wait a minute. If I'd have known, there's a lot of things you'll do that'll make your home more likely to sell, but it doesn't mean that it'll sell for more money. It just
Right.
means if they're going to buy home A or home B and you've done those things, they're going to buy it, but they're not going to pay more for home A.
Right.
Or you just can't get the value out of the appraisal or whatever the case may be. But, sales price, you and I talk ad nauseum about sales price. And one of the things I love about working with Chase is his history and experience as an appraiser, because sales price is nothing to take lightly. It is a number you really got to get your head around. I cringe whenever I hear people talking, or even agents throwing around numbers off the top of their head. Like, you'd really
Yeah.
have to press me to come up with a number on the spot. I don't like doing that at all, because there's always something that you could miss. And by the way, you're not only looking at, what you should put on the market for, but what the appraiser is going to, attach a price to it. And then, by the way, they're like, hey, my neighbor 2 doors down, sold their house for this much. And I'm like, yeah, but that's a 2-story house.
Yeah.
Theirs is a single story house. They got a
Right.
3-car garage. You don't. They've got an extra bath, or whatever it is that would push them out of the comparables. Anyway, what's your
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
I know that's everything, right? Because ultimately, what I do is based on the appraisal, and so if you could, man, overprice your house by $100,000, get an offer, and then do they have extra $100,000 in cash to close that? Because they're not going to
That's out
get
of
they're
pocket
not
money,
on it, right?
and they're not going to probably give it to you unless they absolutely have to have the home. Which, how often does that happen?
Right. So understanding that, and it's all those things are great, but just understanding what the parameters are that you need to follow, and then to your point, like what the neighbor 2 doors down, you want to sell your home at 500,000. The guy with the exact same model plan sold his for 415 2 weeks ago.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's so important, and having somebody that's not going to blow smoke just to get your listing, but is going to shoot you straight, so that if it is you waiting another 6 to 12 months in order, for the appreciation, or for the house to pay down long enough to make it make sense for you financially, you need to know that you're working with a guy like Jerod that's actually going to give you that advice.
Yeah, yeah, and the price could be, what's it trending? Like, oh, I see what's going on here, and I think we should price it at this much. And I'm like, yeah, but if you wait 3 months, again, back to when the demand picks up,
Yep.
and it's trending pretty aggressively in your favor, why don't we wait a couple months?
Right.
Because you don't want to put it on too soon. It starts to languish on the market because your days on market are ratcheting up. It's getting a stigma associated to it. you know, now you've still got it at that time, but because of the stigma, you can't get it out of it. Anyway, there's just a lot of things in preparation that we can talk about that may significantly result in a higher sales price. Go ahead. Did you have a thought on that one?
No, I just love that word preparation.
Yeah. All right. Word of the year. 2025 word of the year.
Mhm.
So I think we've already talked about competition a little bit, right? If you're selling a home, there is that window. I've had some sellers say, if I illuminate the fact that if they um, get it before a lot of homes come on the market, because they made a mistake, right? They thought, oh, I'm going to put it on the market this day, and then they finally got a hold of an agent, and they're like, hey, I would really recommend you do these things. Like, let's put in a backyard. Like you've got mud out there. Uh, Nobody wants to buy your house because they got pets because there's mud coming in and out. Let's put sod down, which you can do in very short order. But if it's a
Mhm.
week or two later, it pushed you into the point where other homes started coming on the market, you know, that could make a difference. So,
Yep, absolutely. Increased competition.
yeah, yeah,
That's been one of the biggest benefits for our sellers lately, right? The last 3 or 4 years is there's not a lot of competition because there hasn't been a lot of resales. It's been mostly new construction. You got people in really low interest rates that feel like they can never leave that house now,
yeah,
which is not the case. You shouldn't feel that way, and I can explain it to you why in a different conversation. But
yeah,
um, yeah, it just you know anything you can do to mitigate that competition is going to help you get a better price.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. The other thing that a lot of people overlook is special requirements, right? You've got pets, you've got a disabled person in the house. You just um, there's a lot of reasons why you wouldn't necessarily sell a home the way you would traditionally sell a home. Um, there are some reasons why you would want to use, like an investor company that does buy homes, you know, because you just, maybe you've got health issues and you don't want a whole bunch of people cycling in and out of your house, and you want to look at other options than just putting it only on the traditional market, but you want, an investor to buy it who has flexibility. You're not having a whole bunch of people going through your property. They'll let you close whenever you want to close. You got special considerations. So we take into account that not everybody's life is the same. So we can't treat everybody the same, and they're not going to sell their home in the same way.
Right.
Um, we can do special things like helping folks rent the home that they're going to move into, and they're going to purchase it, vacate the home that they're in. I've got some clients that have folks in the house. It's hard to show the house, but if they rent the house they're moving into, make this one available, close on it and sell it, then they purchase it. So a occupancy type of arrangement. So that's some special requirements that if people knew, like, man, if I'd have known that, it'd save me a lot of headache.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's this thing could go on forever, this episode, right?
we're
Because
at
there is
53 minutes. So I was like, man, Jared, quit talking. But
yeah, we probably better wrap up, but there's just so much, right? There just really is so much to be prepared for, which is why we're harping on this so much, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah. Yeah, well, let's do that. Let's say it one more time. The sooner you get a hold of us, the better. Don't hesitate. I know a lot of people will say, "Hey, I want to get my ducks in a row, and then I want to find somebody. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time and waste your time." But it's not. The sooner you get a hold of us, the better, because we're gonna serve you better. But anyway, a lot to consider, a lot to digest. Just give us a call. We'll look at your personal situation. We'll put a game plan together, and we'll execute on it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that time of year, right? Like that's why we did this today. It's the first of the year. Like people, if you own a business, you plan. If you have sales goals that you want to meet, you plan. If you have family goals you want to meet, you plan, right? A lot of people plan out their vacations, plan out, all of these things. Well, if this is something that you want to do, plan for it. Come see us.
Yep.
You don't buy right away, but you'll know if you're eligible to, and you can prepare in advance for one of the biggest purchases that you'll ever make.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. All right. Well, we're going to keep it under an hour, so I don't feel too bad then.
That's a long one, though.
Yeah,
Woo!
and we usually took to half an hour, so we clearly blew right past that. But anyway, Well, other than that, I just want to thank you for your time today, Chase. Your insight, your information, and your heart, man. I really sincerely appreciate that, and I'm excited to bring business to you and work with you this year.
Me too, man. It is always a pleasure. Yeah, I don't have too many people I work with that look out for their clients the way you do. So I think
So
we're blessed to be able to help the people, and I know it's going to be a good year this year. I do.
yeah, absolutely. Yes. Well, let's make it a great one. I wish everybody a blessed day. Take care. Bye bye.